Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Loopy Doods podcast with me, myself, Parks Bros, and...
Me, Mario, mostly coasters. It's a me, mostly coasters.
Oh, no, you didn't do that, did you? Did you really do that?
I did do it. I did it.
Oh my goodness! If you don't know, we are two crazy coaster YouTubers, and we do this podcast
zany
as well. I know, so zany. But hey Mario, how you doing? Long time no see. Wink.
Lies. Long time no see before the last week, whatever time it was.
Yeah, it was last week.
I have a new set. You can't even tell.
Oh,
you
no,
can't
I
see
can't.
me.
Yeah, I can't see you. So.
Yeah, it's the exact same as last week, but I have a Shikra cutout instead of a Mako cutout.
Ooh, look at you go. Oh, speaking of cutouts, did you see the X2 one that was announced?
Dude, I just shared it on my story. Oh, so cool. That's the one I want next.
Well, wait, they said it was already on sale, I think, right?
Yeah.
I'll put it on screen right now so you guys know what we're talking about. But the Coaster Dynamics makes these crazy cutouts of coaster models, and that X2 one looks awesome. I mean, I already wanted their Nano Coaster of X2. Now I'm gonna have to get that too. Anyway,
I already have the Nano Coaster. Not in Florida. It's somewhere in California in a box. Dude, the Shikra one is so sick though. I love it, man. I don't, for some reason, since it's only the one car, the fact that it's thick, so wide and girthy and curvy. No, it's not curvy. It's actually very rigid. But just the width of it, I think, makes it pop more than the Mako train.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
I could see the Mako train being a little small, especially since I got to ride it. Right, Mario?
Yeah, look at that segue. Both these coasters are from Florida, and you came here for the first time ever.
I sure did. So if you didn't know, Mario is currently residing in the state of Florida. I am currently residing in California, have been all of my life, but I was able last week, or a little over a week ago now, to go to Florida for the first time and check out some of the parks, not all of them. So I got to do all of the Universal Resort and SeaWorld for a couple hours. So I was able to ride Mako. I was able to experience VelociCoaster as well. So that was a heck of a lot of fun. And one of the coolest parts was being able to see Mario in person again. I didn't even think about this until after I left. I'm like, we should have done an in-person podcast at the hotel. But too late.
That's not true. I brought that up as a joke.
Oh, did you? Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I mean, if you came to Busch Gardens, it would have been dope because you could just spend an hour,
Well, next time, for sure, going to Busch Gardens.
Next time, for sure, going to Busch Gardens.
Well, I found out there's a shuttle from SeaWorld that goes every day to Busch Gardens specifically.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense for the, to get people to both parks. Kind of helps them out, especially if they don't have a rental car and they're just in Orlando. That kind of makes sense. I just didn't expect it or know about it, but that's kind of cool.
Well, at least that's what somebody was saying on my last podcast. They were saying they just took the shuttle from SeaWorld to Busch Gardens, and it runs daily, once at opening and once at close for Busch Gardens. So, I mean, sure, there's
pretty cool.
But apparently pickup time is 9:15 a.m. And they arrive at the latest to Busch Gardens at 11:30 is what I'm reading right now.
Oh, that's a little weird, but
I mean, yeah, the park is open for a while, but
paying for an Uber.
Yeah, I mean,
paying more for an Uber. I'm sure. Do you have to pay for it? Is it free? I think you may have said already. But
I don't know actually on that front. I'm sure you have to pay maybe a small fee. At least that would be my guess. My guess, unless they're okay. Depending on what ticket you have, the round trip will be free or $10. So I guess it depends on your pass.
Oh, that's super worth it either way.
Yeah,
I mean, that's at least a $25 value. If you could do round trip for $25, that's
unless you're traveling with a group of 6 and you all get a rental car for the day, then it's about the same price.
Because it's per person. Yeah. Well, yeah. Still a good option that I didn't know about. There you go, folks.
Yeah. I can't remember who said it in the live stream, but thank you to you, because without that, I probably would have. I mean, I definitely would have. It would have been much harder to get to Busch Gardens, especially with staying out in like Universal property in Orlando itself, because you've got like an hour and a half drive over to BGT. But
you don't say.
Yeah, Mario knows that drive pretty well. But
Too well.
I definitely know how flat Florida is now. Like it's pretty flat.
Yep, it's flat. Flat and soggy. Like some yucky toast.
I mean, I got blessed with pretty easygoing weather. I mean, sure, it was 95 degrees, but like humidity wise, it was fine. It was like what, 50, 60?
The humidity is not that bad out here. Like everyone complains about it, but I mean, it's no worse than anywhere else that has humidity, and I think humidity is not that terrible.
I'd honestly agree. I mean, I'd take a 95 degree day with 90% humidity over 116 day with like 10% humidity, which is what we've been having in California.
It dries out my skin and I get all crusty and gross.
Well, it's more about the wind for
regardless,
me.
But
at least the breeze is kind of cool when it's more humid. When it's dry, the breeze is hot. So it's like it does make your skin
feel kind of like sticky and gross or whatever. But like whatever, man.
But then
when
you
it's
can
hot,
just
you're sticky
shower.
and gross from your own body anyway. You know.
That
Humans
is one
are
thing.
all just sticky and gross.
That is one thing I will say about the Florida parks. It was stinky. And it wasn't anything against the parks or anything. That was just the body odor that was everywhere. Like everybody's sweating, everybody's really hot, everybody's smelly. So then that body odor just kind of conjoins into this weird smell that you just get everywhere at the parks. I mean, you eventually get used to it, but there are certain areas you'll walk to where there's a little bit tighter spaces and it's like, oh, that's potent.
I mean, that kind of ties into the other thing that we're going to be talking about today, and that's the summer crowds picking up, and that's more prevalent than anywhere in the Florida region, I feel like.
Oh yeah,
and like you said, the stinky factor is cranked up to a new level with the heat and how many bodies are coming in. We'll
definitely get into that a little later. Some tips and tricks we might have for this summer in terms of visiting theme parks, but yeah, Florida park's kind of stinky, but that's just because of the guests. I mean, the parks themselves, they smell great. Especially, at least with Universal, they've got a lot of smellicizers. I forget what they're called, but like little smell, like spritzers. It was kind of fun smelling new smells. That's weird.
What are you on about?
I don't know.
What?
Hey, but Loopy Doods, am I right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Universal, good. SeaWorld, I wish I got more time at, honestly.
It's a vibe. It's a vibe for sure at that park.
Well, I mean, I gotta ask, like, since you got to spend a full day, well, almost a full day with me, seeing my first reaction, what did I have the reactions you'd expect me to have, or did I have some different opinions than you would have expected?
Well, so I missed your
Adventure.
initial reactions on like VelociCoaster,
Mm-hmm.
and then most of the other reactions were like, "This is awesome and all, but we've been here for 5 hours, so let's go look at other parts of the park." So, what did I even catch your initial reactions to on like Spiderman? I think
Spiderman, Hulk,
Spiderman,
Hagrid's.
And Hulk, right. Yeah. I think your reaction to all three of those was like pretty much exactly what I would have.
Even.
Oh yeah. Everything was what I expected, and pretty much the exact same opinions I have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So not too much to say on it there. I think the one thing that I was happiest about was how much you liked Spider-Man, because I think that is one of the most well done attractions like in the world for sure.
Yeah. Easily. I can't believe it's 20 years old. I know it's been redone in places, but
it's incredible, man.
Dude.
If that thing opened today, it would still be breathtaking. Like I'd be like, holy crap, they raised the bar with that one. And like the fact that it came out 20 years ago just makes it that much more special. And props to it holding up that well, honestly.
Well, it just goes to show like how much like real time, thought, and effort went into that one single attraction. It's ridiculous. I honestly one of the best dark rides I've ever been on, and I've only been on it once. Usually it takes me a couple times to be like, oh, maybe I like this bit a little bit more. I'm liking this bit a little bit more, but straight out of the gate, first ride on it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like a top 5 dark ride. Fantastic.
It's actually interesting that you bring that up because I loved it like immediately as well. Like even rides like VelociCoaster, and you can attest to this as well. Like it took me like a few rides to warm up to it, but Spider-Man like was straight out of the gate. I was like, I realized like I'm like, damn, this is something special, and it's still just as good as that first ride to me. So yeah, I mean, it's as good as of a screen-based attraction as you could possibly make.
Well, it's kind of funny, like with the first couple of screens, I was like, okay, this is kind of like Transformers, okay, and then you turn around to one of those physical like sets finally, and you're like, wait a second, what? And then you go back to a screen, and you're like, okay, and then you go back to another giant scene that's just like twice as big as that first one, and you're like, okay. And then there was even a part on the ride where I couldn't tell it was screen. I totally thought it was a real set for a second. And then I'm like, oh, wait, no, there's an animated character going across that. That's a screen. But there was legitimately a scene in there where I was looking at a screen going, that's a physical set. Oh, wait, no, it's not. Dr. Rock is kind of all over it. So like even the animation is really well done. And I know it's super cartoony, but it still looks great.
Oh, but it makes it work that much better for that type of attraction. That way it doesn't feel like, oh, this is CGI. It's like, no, it's animation, but that's the medium in which these characters live. Yeah. So it plays that much better than something like Transformers or like, dare I even say, Fast and Furious. I mean, you can't even put that in the same category as Spider-Man.
Well, I think one thing that really works in Spider-Man's favor is because it's so different, you go, okay, I can't compare this to real life. I am in the comic book world. Like that's just how it works out. Whereas something with like Transformers or Fast and Furious, you're like, these are supposed to be real life, and they just look that little bit off. You know, they've got kind of like that uncanny valley thing. I mean, especially more with Fast and Furious, and because of that, you're like, I don't know. It feels like you kind of get taken out of the world a little bit because it just doesn't match up.
And I think there's like an obvious hierarchy between those 3 rides, right? Like Fast and Furious is obviously on the bottom, Transformers is in the middle, still pretty good, and then Spider-Man's on top by being amazing, no pun intended. And I think those are probably the 2 biggest factors: the implementation of practical effects and like the seamless transitions between screens and sets with Spider-Man. Yeah. Then Transformers has less of that, and it's also trying to be slightly more realistic. And then Fast and Furious is supposed to be like just straight up real life, and it looks the absolute worst because, like you said, the whole uncanny valley type thing. Yeah. And then Spider-Man pulls it off the best because it's supposed to be cartoony, and it's a perfect medium for what it's going for. So yeah. And what about Hulk? Oh, you only ended up doing 2 rides on it, I think, right?
3.
Oh.
Yeah, because we got a first one, and then we went back later, just you, Carter, and I, and we kind of had a mini marathon on it, which that was, I still can't get over that one comment that we both got. I thought that was hilarious.
Oh yeah, someone said Drew looks like the dude from Conjuring 3. Yeah, someone said I look like a white Freddie Mercury, and I just have a mustache.
So if you guys think that's the case, let us know in the comments. If you're watching the video version, if you're watching the audio version, go to the video and leave us a comment there. But yeah, I thought that was hilarious. But the ride itself, what the heck, man? What an awesome first half, especially. Don't get me wrong, the second half is awesome too. But that first half is just super unique and super forceful in comparison to all the other B&Ms I've been on. I absolutely adored it.
I think this is like the perfect attraction to describe by saying it fists, especially that first half. And I don't think the second half being less intense is a bad thing at all. It's still really fun and enjoyable. Yeah. And it's kind of like a welcome rest. and it's not like it has some elements that are super intense and then with some less intense elements mixed in between. You have like the amazing, incredible, again, no pun intended, you have the incredible pacing of the first half that just does not let up. But then you also have a second half that is still fun, but isn't like just ripping you to shreds. So I think, I mean, it's a top-notch attraction for sure.
Well, I think my only real problem with the second half, not that it's not as intense, that's whatever. Like, I'm cool with that. I think it's more of just a setting thing. Because
yeah, that's fair.
The first half is over water, over the walkway, and then the second half is like kind of in this weird, like deserty, like sparsely, foliaged. I don't know. There's not many plants, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I think that was my biggest gripe with the second half was really just setting. Outside of that, the soundtrack is blaring at that part, which is awesome. You've got some really great inversions and like kind of just trippy, like flowy elements that twist you left and right. I really enjoyed it. It was just, I think that's my only complaint about the coaster in general is that the second half setting is just not as good as the first, but the first half setting is top notch.
To go back to you asking me like what I thought of your reactions, like I was so happy that you're like, what the heck is that final brake run? So like we get to the end of the ride and all three trains are stacking and we're just like at like a 35-degree angle, just like leaning to our left, waiting to get back into the station. And that's one of the things that to this day I still find super endearing about Hulk is its final brake run being on like a slight incline or a decline, whatever. It's slightly tilted, it's slightly
it makes no sense.
And it's also too short for the train. Yeah. So like the back two rows are sticking out into the turn that goes into the final brake run. And it's like, I guess fit it however you can, but it really has the feel of a coaster that someone built really well in No Limits 2, but they just didn't quite know how to like do everything in No Limits 2. So like the brake run's just like too short and tilted, but that's actually how it was supposed to be designed. I don't know, man.
Well, it
gives it charm, honestly.
Outside of even the brake run, like comparing it to a No Limits 2 thing, there's that weird drop down right before that vertical loop in the second half ish. I mean, it's not technically the second half.
Yeah. Like going like before you hit the mid-course, right?
That's another No Limits 2 moment right there because it's just kind of
like
weird
the first
and janky.
Corkscrew, right? Where you start up high, like after
right
that turnaround.
Right after the first corkscrew.
And then you do the corkscrew, and then it instead of just corkscrewing and then having the corkscrew like finish at a steep drop angle, kind of like how the first inversion does, where you come out of it and then it ends in a steep angle. You end relatively flat, and then it turns into a drop afterwards. So it's like really like someone built it like forget No Limits. It's more like Roller Coaster Tycoon right there.
Actually that's probably a better.
Well, and then to continue with the brake runs, like another really fun part about the second half is especially towards the back, coming out of the mid-course. You get some really fun floater there.
Yeah, you get a good, even near the front, you got at least a little bit of airtime coming off of that.
Yeah, like we said, like row 4 or whatever, you get floater. Like, so pretty much like mid to back half of the train, you're getting some floater going into it. So I don't know, man. That ride is, like, as far as B&M loopers go, that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, I think honestly, in terms of like where it ranks in my B&Ms overall, it's definitely like a top 5 at worst. You know, I don't think I could put many B&Ms above it. It is still a great attraction. Another fantastic attraction in Superhero Island that still holds up to this day. I know it was retracked recently, so it's a lot smoother than it used to be, but still, like it's fantastic. Absolutely,
it just has like great variety as well. Like, I mean, like,
well, just
not only does it have the bone-crushing positives, which is like probably most known for in the enthusiast community, but you do have negatives as well. Like just the first inversion, you're floating up out of your seat. That mid-course that we talked about, and that it also has great whippiness. I mean, it has everything going for it.
Well, especially that launch. What the heck? That was my first like inclined launch,
dude.
So cool,
good. So good, and it just makes that first inversion that much better.
Oh, 100%.
And the fact that you're doing the whole first half with the momentum of that launch. Like, I mean, if the coaster was that tall coming off of a lift hill, it wouldn't haul nearly as hard as it does coming out of a launch.
Well, if it was just a lift hill instead of a launch, I think it would valley in the Cobra rolls. So
well, yeah, obviously, but You get what I'm saying.
But yeah, and it's so intense. Like just not even the coaster itself or the element. It's just like the music kind of builds up, and then you've got like these crazy like graphics on the sides of your train that are like, oh yeah, you're getting gamma radiation all in your veins, and it's just making you go insane. It's just such a cool theming element.
Yeah.
In addition, like we don't have any B&Ms that I can think of that are that well themed, like anywhere that I've experienced at least. So like that was a cool change of pace too. Sure, it's not like the best themed coaster in the world or anything like that, but the fact that it had an amazing looking queue line and the station and that launch tunnel alone, that was a really cool, different experience that we don't get with any other places, at least that I've been to.
You got to come back for a night ride on it, because the tunnel is like that much darker. You get the cool headlights, and you get like the fun uplighting of the green, and then it's dark in the back half. So night ride, my dude.
I got some night rides on something else though.
Popeyes.
Actually, I did get a night ride on that technically. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yeah, you know what? It was
actually
fun.
The theming looks really fun and like cool.
Have you not been on it?
No, I've been on it.
Oh, okay.
No, I meant yuck as in like getting a night ride on a freaking raft ride, on like probably the wettest raft ride in the world.
It is 100% the wettest ride I've ever been on. But it was still
even
like
if there's another
degrees.
ride that gets you as wet, it's like at least tied, because you cannot get more wet than you get on that ride.
Yeah, but at least it was still like 92 when we rode it. So like, sure, it was nighttime, but like it was still really hot out. So I mean, we did leave a puddle in our VelociCoaster seats, but it's okay. It's all right.
Oh yeah, that happens.
And at that point, it was already like an hour plus later too.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, Popeyes is freaking insane. Oh,
it's so well themed too. Like
it
I love
really
the
is.
theming of that ride.
Yeah, I mean it's not. I don't think it would. At least in terms of theming, I don't think it's like as good as Grizzly River Run, but a lot of that setting makes up for it. A lot of the wetness makes up for that. Like, because in terms of like wetness, there's no competition on that front.
Well, so it has surprisingly good like pacing, and even though it doesn't have like any drops, I find it to be the most like thrilling raft ride I've been on. It just the way that the water flows.
There's
is
this
insane.
one moment.
It goes so fast.
Like right after the lift hill, which I don't want to spoil.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you're gonna capsize. Like the first time I was going on, I'm like, is this right? Is this how it's supposed to do? Because it looks like I'm about to go under.
Well, it was funny. We rode it once, and we got back to the station, and somebody in the party was like, should we just go again? And I'm sitting there like, bro, I'm shivering and it's 92 degrees. Like, what do you want from me? But that was with a half full boat. Now, we asked the op if we could just stay in the boat, and she's like, sure, just scooch over. So we all scooch over together, and then they sit a family of 6 with us.
Nice.
During the first half of the ride, we all thought it was going to capsize. Straight up. Like,
oh yeah.
It obviously didn't.
But have you been on a ride where it like flows faster through than
I don't think I have.
Yeah.
It was just insane. The speed we were pulling even before going up the lift hill. Like it was just such a good ride. Definitely perfect for those summer days. Which we will speak about that in just a little bit. But right next to Popeyes, I figured we should talk about it. VelociCoaster.
Yeah, it's good. What did you think about it?
I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Thought it's one of the best rides I've been on, easily. Like the first half, coaster wise, is not like the greatest thing ever or anything, but the theming makes up for that. The head choppers make up for that. The raptor encounters make up for that, even if they're only half a second. I was gonna say,
like, I keep interrupting you.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, because this has kind of been the general consensus to everyone that I've talked to, including myself. I talk to myself all the time. The first half, was it better than you expected it to be?
No.
Really?
I don't think so.
Interesting. You're the only person that I've talked to that didn't think it was better than you thought it was going to be. Does that even make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I don't know. I really enjoyed the first half, but it was pretty much everything I expected, maybe even a little bit less. Because there were a bunch of people saying like you get insane ejector airtime on every moment in the first. That's not true.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think using other people as my medium of like trying to get a feel for the ride before riding it was definitely not the best choice.
That makes more sense.
Especially
because I wrote it before like pretty much anyone else, so like to me I didn't have anyone else's words to go off of to like over or under hype anything, so it was more of just my own personal preconceived notion of what I thought it was going to be like, and I was just surprised that there was airtime on every single element in there.
Yeah, I mean, well, it definitely depends where you sit for those inversions. But outside of the inversions, you definitely get it on almost every hill. But most of the time, it's just kind of like, oh, I'm floating out of my seat for half a second. You know, it's not like insane ejector, like I'm going to fall out of my seat. Like, it's just not how it is, at least in the first half. Second half, though, that was better than I was expecting, I will say.
Interesting.
I'm probably the opposite to most people on that front. The top hat going down, fantastic. Everything else after that is also like just super whippy and more like, I don't know, it just feels hardcore in comparison to the first half in terms of elements.
Yeah.
But then that roll,
dude.
Oh my
every
goodness.
time. I've been on it like 20-ish times now, and every time that thing's like, I can't believe how intense it is.
It's so freaking good.
I think that's one element that like can't be overhyped. Because you've heard nothing but good things for like a month straight before riding it. Yeah. And it still caught you off guard.
It 100% did. And I was not expecting that at all. I was like, okay, it'll be like a more intense Outlaw Run finale. Then I wrote it. I'm like, oh, maybe not. I mean, it's that times 10, really. At least in terms of intensity.
It genuinely might be the strongest moment of negative G's that I've ever felt on any coaster. And it's on an inversion.
I don't know about that, but I think added in with the laterals, it makes it feel that way.
I don't know, man. Like, maybe the Raptor clones.
I mean, that and Magnum,
I can't think of anything that.
Magnum's last couple of hills, though.
Magnum, maybe. I don't know. Magnum might also just feel accentuated by the minimal lap bars and how abrupt it is.
Probably.
And I suppose the Mosasaurus roll might be accentuated by how abrupt it is as well. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it rivals some of the best airtime hills that I've been on as far as the intensity of airtime.
Well, it's crazy because, like, I think the biggest positive to VelociCoaster is that it does not stop getting better. It is a constant uphill in terms of, like, the ride just finishes at its best point. Like, it just keeps going, and not many rides do that. And I think that's really the biggest plus to VelociCoaster. I mean, sure, the first half is cool. It's just not like, I don't know, everything picks up right before the second launch for me. That's when it just starts going up and up and up. And then you have the top hat, all those crazy elements in that spaghetti bowl type section. Then you have the Mosasaurus roll, and then even a great pop of ejector airtime, especially if you're sitting on the left-hand side right before the brake run. It just keeps going up and up and up. It's like it's like a plot chart or whatever those are called.
Yeah, totally.
Like, sure.
But instead of having like the little like dip after the climax, it doesn't.
Well, I mean, it's got a little dip. I would say the Mosasaurus roll is really the climax, but it's got a little bit of falling action with that final like airtime twist. But it's still amazing. Like, it's still up that high in terms of like ride experience. Like, the falling action is it's not falling very far.
No. So, one thing that you rode that I wasn't the biggest fan of, I've only done it once, is Gringott. You seem to have been blown away by it.
Oh, Gringott is freaking phenomenal.
I enjoyed like the queue so much. I love Diagon Alley. But the ride itself, I don't know if it was just the story that maybe I couldn't get into, or just The fact that it was primarily screens, like almost entirely. I don't know what it was about it. It just wasn't my favorite attraction overall. I think the ride system is incredible. The fact that it's a roller coaster and then like also a dark ride and like the way the seats move and all that stuff is amazing. Just as a ride and the way it tells its story, I kind of just didn't really care about the plot, if I'm being honest. So tell me what it is that what blew you away about it.
I think it was more ride system than anything. The story itself is kind of I'm not going to lie. Like, it's kind of all over the place. Right. And it's like, oh, there's Harry. Wait, when did he come into play? Anyway.
And why?
Exactly. But like, just in terms of set pieces, when there's not screens, brilliant. Everything that happens during the screens in terms of like technology for the ride system, insane. Like, so during all of my first experiences on the rides, we had my buddy Zach sit next to me with his Apple Watch recording audio. Sadly, all of that audio got lost when he tried to update and send it to me. So we don't have any of that. But you should have heard my reaction to that first room in the ride, which I don't want to spoil, but I lost my mind.
Interesting.
I never thought I would ever experience an element like that in my life. And there I was, and I lost it.
I mean, I agree with you there. I mean, I think that thing is super cool, and just the way the whole ride system works is great. But I mean, the thing that's amazing about Universal, and like even with something like as quote unquote limited on theming as VelociCoaster is just the way that like stories are being told, and like the way you're immersed in these universes, and for me to just like kind of not care and be sort of lost when it comes to plot, like it's a little disappointing in that regard.
That's understandable.
And if it's just, I know it seems like such a small thing to be like, okay, this one thing wasn't the best in the world, but I feel like that is such a major part of the attraction, especially since it's not such like a high thrill coaster like VelociCoaster or, you know, Hulk even. I think the theming aspect and the storytelling has to be great. I mean, that's part of why Fast and the Furious is such a bad attraction, in my opinion. It's only storytelling, and it just completely misses that mark. So I think, and God, I don't want to compare Gringotts to Fast and Furious, but it is just missing as far as storytelling goes. And the 3D isn't really the best in the world. It's not like we're talking about Amazing Spider-Man, where it's a medium that really plays well. It feels like CGI, and it's not like Forbidden Journey where it's like 50-50 on set and screens. And it doesn't have as much. It doesn't have the movements aren't as dynamic as Forbidden Journey to make you feel as enveloped in the screen sections either, despite the fact that the ride vehicles are very advanced and really cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not. It's not a home run for me.
I completely understand it. Well, here's the thing. I only got one ride on it. So I'm sure my opinion would change at least a little bit with another ride, especially since apparently some of the effects weren't working for me. At least that's what I was told by
oh, nice. Maybe
Carter.
They weren't for me
so,
too.
Like, I had no idea though, and I still really, really loved the attraction. But like, even with those added effects, I might even like it more. But it's just, I don't know. I need more rides on everything except for VelociCoaster.
Right.
Like, that is the one ride I got on, I think 10 times, 11 times. So like I know that ride backwards and forwards now. I want to get one more ride on Hagrid's. I've only gotten one ride on that. I want to get one more ride on Gringotts. I've only got one ride on that. Hulk, I got 3, thankfully. So I'm definitely more okay with my rides on there. But yeah, I don't know. I was probably just so blown away by the ride system itself that I really wasn't necessarily paying attention to the actual story, because I was literally looking around the car trying to see how it all worked instead of paying attention to the screens.
Well, that was the thing for me too. Like, when the ride ended, I turned to John and I was like, wow, that is one of the coolest ride systems ever. And she's like, that ride was just like, okay. And I was like, yeah, unfortunately, like, overall.
I mean, I would love to see a like second iteration of it. I would absolutely adore to see that ride system.
Yeah.
With more modern screens, maybe more sets potentially.
Well, I mean, like to go back to the Spider-Man and Transformers comparisons, like imagine Gringott as like the Transformers. Let's just see what they could do with like a Spider-Man of that ride system, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
just
with
using it to its full potential, essentially.
Yeah, which would be... I mean, it would probably end up being the best coaster I've ever been on.
Well, just imagine like you're going backwards and then like you turn in the track bank so that you're leaning forward into like a really cool set piece below you or something like that. Like, I mean, it seems like it has
and then
like
fire below
potential.
you. I don't know what ride
like,
we're talking about, but imagine plumes of fire as you're tilting to. Oh man.
Yeah, like you could be tilting towards something like really sketchy below, and then the seats tilt with you, and you like it blindsides you because you're facing the other way at first, and then you like boom, you're right in it. It would be awesome.
Isn't that just a top spin on a coaster track at that point?
Yes, and that's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well, let's get into the summer stuff soon, but I'm interested on a couple other things.
Okay.
The two other coasters that aren't the kiddie coaster at Studios, Rip Ride and Mummy. Real quick, what are your thoughts on those?
Wish I got more than one ride. I only got one on each. I can't believe that. I was there for 5 days and I only got one ride on each of those. But Mummy is fantastic.
Incredible, huh?
Kind of unpopular opinion. I think I might prefer the coaster section in Hollywood, but everything else by far Florida. Like, it's just fantastic.
I'm dying over here.
Oh yeah,
dude, the ejector on the first...
I know. There's one moment of really good ejector.
Okay, and plug your ears for like 2 seconds if you don't want spoilers. But the first launch is inclined.
Yeah,
it's inclined.
Yeah, I had
and then keep plugging those ears if you don't want spoilers. But the backward section is the first part of the ride. Like it's. Dude, it's like miles different from the Hollywood version, and I just think the ride elements hit harder on the Florida version.
Well, I think the ride itself is way better in Florida, like no question.
Okay, that's good at least.
Like, but just in terms of like overall coaster section, I wish the backwards section. I think that's my biggest thing. I wish the backwards section was much longer because the backwards section is literally like one drop, and then you stop and slowly turn around with the projection, and it's like okay. This doesn't really...
I can understand that, but what I will say is both backward sections just exist to be a gimmicky backward section. I don't think... Even though the one in Hollywood is longer, it still doesn't provide that interesting of forces. It's just kind of, really. I'm just meandering backwards.
But so it does last 3 times as long.
Yeah, but it being shorter in Florida doesn't really bother me because it's like, okay, the point of it is just, oh, crazy, we're going backwards. But like if it's just going on longer, it's kind of like, okay, we've been going backwards. Do something with it.
Everything else, though.
The room with like all the bugs and stuff, I just noticed this for the first time the other day. Like even though I've been on the coaster like 6-7 times now, there's like beetles. First of all, I always look at this part. There's beetles like on the pillars. So like the pillars rotate to give it effect that beetles are crawling across the wall. So it has what am I trying to say? At first, the pillar is like blank, like just a normal pillar column holding up the building. And then when the roaches start or the beetles start coming out, it twists and then you see the beetles like running across the pillar. But in the middle of that wall, there's also physical beetles being shot out of a hole in the wall, which I didn't notice at first. I thought it was just projection, but there's actual physical pieces coming out of the wall.
Oh, I thought it was projection too. Like I had no clue on that.
I could be wrong. I could be very wrong, but it looked like there were physically things like coming out, which could work, right? They shoot out, they land in a little thing below and then get reset in the top.
Well, I am curious though, with the beetle scene specifically, in Florida, is there that weird effect where you get touched in the feet?
There is not, and I'd say that's probably, I guess, one other thing that Hollywood
I wasn't
does
sure because I wasn't sure if it wasn't working for me or something in Florida. I never even asked about it. I didn't even think about it. But like Hollywood, you have this weird feet effect where it like brushes your feet like the beetles are crawling all over your feet, which is a really cool effect, especially if you're not expecting it. Sorry for all the spoilers. We were so good about not spoiling Gringotts, and now here we are, and we're like, oh yeah, there's a fire and this thing, and there's beetles, and
well, at least to be fair, both mummies have been around significantly longer than Escape from Gringotts, so.
Yeah, very much so. And I think, honestly, in terms of like Mummy to Gringotts, more people would rather have Mummy spoiled than Gringotts too. Because Gringotts
also,
is
Mummy,
like just...
Mummy's significantly better than Gringotts.
Okay, that's where I differ from you, pal.
Mummy is so much better.
You know what's better than both of them?
What?
Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't think it's better than
both.
Either of them.
Rip
probably.
Ride Rocket is better at being an outdoor coaster.
I'd hope so.
That's kind of indisputable. Okay, real quick on the Rip Ride Rocket. What are your thoughts?
I loved it. I legitimately thought it's like so underrated in my opinion. Like absolutely adored it. Got a row 5 ride. Even in row 5, I was getting some really nice airtime into each mid-course. Like super smooth too.
I've still yet to get a front car ride, which is where you're going to start getting the ejector going into the brake runs, and you still get ejected towards the back. What'd you think about that non-inverting loop?
I thought it was crazy.
Right? It gives you such good like sustained airtime.
Well, that and the laterals on it too.
Yeah.
Like it's so good. Because I've never been in a non-inverting loop before. So that was...
Me neither.
That was really cool to experience.
And then it has that section where you like spiral upwards and it gets like tighter and tighter the higher you go. So it's just like sustained positives.
Yeah. And then I think it started graying out at that point.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. You know, the funny thing is I was actually there the same day as Chris from Airtime Thrills. And we never got to meet up or anything. We didn't really try and make that happen because it was VelociCoaster opening day. I also got there like 5 hours late because I slept in. Anyway, but he rode Rip Ride Rocket probably like an hour before I did, and he was saying it's back in his top 50, and I totally understand
I remember
why.
seeing that on his story, saying like, why do people crap on this thing?
Like, it is definitely in my top 50. I mean, I've been on a fourth the amount of coasters he has, but it's definitely in my top 50.
I think it might be in mine as well. It's super fun, and the music really does add to it. It's a great ride.
Here's my one gripe. I was trying to select music. I had music selected. Then Carter's like, ooh, Daft Punk. Clicks Daft Punk. I'm like, oh, there's Daft Punk. So I try to go back to click Daft Punk. And we start going up the lift hill. And it's like, oh, you're getting generic rock music. I'm like, dang,
oh, no.
why? So yeah, that's my one gripe with the ride. I wish you had a little bit longer to choose this song.
There's both strongers on there, Kanye West and Daft Punk's. And I think those are the two best songs to ride to.
Yeah. Well, there was
I'm like the biggest Eminem fan in the world, and they have Lose Yourself as a bonus track, and I just feel like they didn't pick the right parks for it. Like the intro should have been on the lift hill, and it just like jumps into a random verse when you're going up the lift hill. I'm kind of just like,
oh, really? Oh, weird.
Yeah, it should have been the intro, right? Get you hyped going up the lift, and then like snap back to reality on the drop. You know,
that would be brilliant, actually.
But it was a bonus track, so I guess it's just like tossed in there. But the strongers fit the vibe of the ride so well.
I'm sure they fit better than the generic rock music.
Yeah. Well, I think any song is still going to be better than no music on a coaster.
I had an Allman Brothers song chosen, and then I was like, oh, Daft Punk, and I should have just.
And you got neither.
I should have just stuck with the Allman Brothers, man. Oh, man.
Nice.
But yeah, I absolutely love Rip Ride Rocket. I don't understand the hate. I don't understand all the people being like it's the roughest thing ever. Maybe I just got a really lucky ride on it. But I really loved it. I thought it was amazing.
Anyway,
SeaWorld.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
SeaWorld. you were there for like 1.5 minutes, I think, something like that.
Yeah, so I went to SeaWorld as well. Sadly, it was the only day that it rained for me. So everything was closed for like the first 5 hours of the day. So like we were at Universal trying to get one ride on VelociCoaster, one ride on Hagrid's just to completely satisfy me in terms of those rides. But then the rain started while we were in the VelociCoaster queue. By the time we got out, it ended up being like 3 hours later than we'd hoped. So we didn't ride Hagrid's, which really bummed about, but I'll be back very soon to get all the rides on Hagrid's. But then we headed over to SeaWorld, which was our original plan, to just do those 2 rides and then go to SeaWorld and be there for like a full 6 hours, maybe even more. But I got like 3.5, almost 4 hours at the park, and it was slammed. So we waited like an hour and a half for Infinity Falls, which that ride is awesome.
No.
Yeah,
It's
man.
awesome?
I love it. I think it's great.
Oh, it's not worth an hour and a half wait, though.
I mean, probably not, but it
okay,
was
we'll
still a
save
lot of
that for
fun.
like the summer section of the park, debating like whether or not it's
Oh,
worth it
yeah,
to go to
yeah,
parks in
yeah.
the summer. Because
Well, even the
God.
quick queue was like 45 minutes.
oh man, that's where it's like that's where Universal is a godsend, because like it doesn't matter how busy that park gets, lines won't move at least.
Yeah. But thankfully, by the time we got off, most of the coasters had a shorter wait, which was good. So Mako, we got almost right on, which was great.
Nice.
Kraken was a walk-on. Manta was like a 5-minute wait, I think, by the time we got to it at the end of the night.
Wow, that's lucky, because that thing is always slammed.
yeah.
And, like sending like one train every 10 minutes.
Journey to Atlantis had an hour wait with 15 minutes left in the park.
Yeah.
So I
So
don't
what do
know.
you think of the B&Ms?
What? Oh, the B&Ms. Well, let's talk about the B&Ms, shall we? Mako. First off, that was my first B&M hyper ever. So that was crazy to finally get on one of those. I do think probably a little overhyped potentially.
I thought the same thing after one ride. It's kind of one of those that grows on you. It's kind of
That's
like
fair.
Millie in that respect, where you're like, okay, that was cool, I guess. But then you ride it more and you're like, yeah, this is it. You know?
Well, we also got sat in the middle. Like we couldn't choose, sadly.
I don't even think that's probably the biggest factor, because I still have a blast in the middle on that
Well,
ride.
it was still really, really good. But like a lot of people are saying it's the best coaster in Florida still. And I'm like, I maybe top 3.
If you like fun as much as you like intensity, I could see that.
Yeah. Well, like
You just gotta ride it more, man. You just gotta ride it
do.
a couple more times.
I really, really do. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely loved Mako. One of my favorite coasters of all time. Just, I do think a little overhyped, at least in terms of my first ride.
I could see that.
The first half, I adored, like that first turn into the first airtime hill and all that. Ridiculously smooth, so much airtime, and so different. Like just because it was floater, like just floating out of your seat for that long is something you don't have in California.
Yeah, like the closest you've got to it is like a Millie, essentially, right?
Yeah, or Goliath's one airtime hill, or Ghost Rider's first airtime hill. Those are really the closest you can get to that feeling
But
on Mako.
it's different to have it back to back.
Oh,
just,
yeah,
like the whole
for
ride
sure.
of it.
For sure. I mean, like, you kind of get that with Steel Eel a little bit, but I'd argue that goes more into ejector at points. But that ride's
That's
not
true.
exactly the smoothest either, where Mako legitimately, I think, is probably top 2, top 3 in terms of smoothest coasters I've ever been on. Ridiculously smooth. So that was a cool plus. Honestly, probably the most re-rideable coaster that I've been on, at least in Florida,
Oh, yeah.
if not that I've ever been on. Like, I could have ridden it 30 times in an hour and been fine.
The setting is phenomenal too.
Oh, fantastic setting. Especially, we had Kraken dueling with us as we're going across, and I've got my 360 GoPro on my arm. So, like, there's going to be some awesome shots when that vlog comes out. Like, it's probably one of my favorite 360 videos I've ever done, for sure, on there. But yeah, it's fantastic. But speaking of Kraken, that was the next B&M. Kraken, fantastic ride. Definitely not my favorite floorless, but still really solid in all ways. Sat in the back row, got whipped around quite a bit. Yeah, no, it was fantastic. Not my favorite ride in the park or anything, but still really, really fun. Really
a lot
intense.
more intense. Is that what you were just gonna say?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the most intense ride in Florida, at least from my experience, but more intense than a lot of the floorlesses I've been on, which was really cool.
It's definitely more intense than you would expect for a floorless. And
yeah, well, especially that I loved the one portion where you go underground and all that. That was my favorite part of the ride.
I love that part. It's so good, man.
Well, it's
just
like
diving in the trenches, man.
The whole first half, at least at night, because we did ride it with the sun completely down. You don't really get that crazy view of Mako really well. I mean, you get some lights off in the distance. You don't really get a reflection in the water or anything. So that was kind of a bummer in the first half, at least scenically. But then the second half, diving into those dark tunnels with the lights all around, like, such a cool moment. It really set it apart from a lot of the floorlesses I've been on. So I think during a day ride, seeing that water and Mako running around, I think that would honestly add to it a little bit. But I won't lie, I was a little disoriented with it being at nighttime with all the loops and everything. So that was a really cool experience. Now, in terms of GoPro footage, I left horizon leveling on. So going through the inversions is a fun time. Especially the vertical loops, because it just starts flipping upside down like over. Yeah, it's great.
Randomly, yeah.
But yeah, Kraken, amazing. Probably my bottom of the 3 B&Ms that I rode, but I only got one ride on everything, so can't wait to go back and really solidify all my feelings on everything.
Well, it being at the bottom of those 3 B&Ms is not a bad thing either.
No,
that's
not
like
at
being
all.
like the worst RMC.
Yeah, it's still like an 8 out of 10, you know, at minimum. Like,
yeah,
spoilers for my eventual review. But yeah, it's fantastic. But then Manta. Second flying coaster ever. The only thing I've been on is Tatsu.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Wow.
Dude, it's so good.
Like, Tatsu, don't
you only
get me
got to
wrong.
ride it at night, though, right?
Yeah, it was pitch
See, that's
black.
another one where like the scenery is helpful during the day, especially in that second half where you're loaded.
Definitely. Well, even in the dark, it was really cool to see kind of these weird shadows like fly past you at like 45 miles an hour. But yeah,
and it feels so much faster because of how low to the ground you are.
So good though. I don't know if I'd put it above Tatsu after one ride, but it definitely is possible with more rides, I think. But I've also been on Tatsu like 50 times, where I've been on Manta once.
I'm just surprised that it even competes with Tatsu, because like coming from Tatsu being one of my favorite coasters ever to going on Manta and thinking it might be better, I was just like, holy crap. I'm surprised it even, holds up to a coaster that's like, that feels like it's like 150 feet off the ground for the entire ride and is like just so surreal. But I don't know, man. It just does something different with like being kind of intense and like low to the ground and just feeling fast. And
well, I think the biggest factor to that is how low it is compared to Tatsu. Tatsu is about flying, right? And it does that better than any other coaster. Like you are flying 160 feet in the air or whatnot. You can't do that anywhere else.
Right.
Manta though has this kind of cool element of it where you're just super low to the ground for most of the ride, so it makes it feel, I don't know, more dangerous in a sense, like not more dangerous, totally. But like you just get that crazy feeling of I could touch the ground right now. I could touch the water when you're going over the water section. Oh, can you actually?
Yeah, if you're on, I forget if it's left, right, whichever side.
Well, I think on the right.
I think on the right you're closer to like the water effect, and then on the left you're closer to the waterfall.
Here's the
if you reach your hand out, you get a little splishy splash.
Here's the sad thing: water effect was off for us. So even though I sat on the right, couldn't get any of the mist or anything. But still at night, I think it was like row 6. We didn't want to wait the extra 4 rotations for back row.
Oh God, no.
Still a really, really good ride. Probably my favorite in the park after one ride each.
Dang.
Yeah. It's so, I don't know what it is about it, honestly. Like the pretzel loop isn't as insane, obviously. The layout itself is kind of, it's there. It's not like the most crazy layout, but I think it's just the fact that you're so close to the ground for that entire cycle.
Yeah,
I think that really just adds to it.
It's almost like as opposed to like hang gliding, which is like kind of like what Tatsu is. It's like being in one of those like flying suits and just like shooting through the trees like those crazy people do.
Yeah, I think that's
kind of like the comparison.
That's probably the best comparison I can think of, because I was going to say it's like you're a snake slithering through the grass, and I'm like, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense at all.
That's more of like Cobra at Discovery Kingdom.
Yeah, like, oh God, I love that ride. But yeah, that's fantastic. Manta, Mako, Kraken, that is a brilliant top 3. Get out to SeaWorld Orlando when you can, because just those top 3, if you can ride those a couple times each, phenomenal. And speaking on Universal, just real quick again, some of the best parks I've ever been to. Like, I didn't need to ride anything at those parks. Like Camp Jurassic.
Without a doubt, man. Oh my God, dude, we could go on forever about Camp Jurassic. Did your Camp Jurassic vlog come out yet?
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah, and I left a couple of your choice words in there too.
Sometimes words come out of my mouth that I shouldn't say. This person, they had metal on the end of their drawstring, and I was like, oh, don't worry, like that. They're only going off in the metal detector. You're only going off in the metal detector because you're dangly bits, because I forgot what drawstrings were called. And I was like, oh, thank God I didn't say that to the wrong person, because I did not mean it in any type of inappropriate way.
Oh, no.
I am just stupid. And I was like, oh, don't worry, it's just your dangly bits. And then immediately was like, you know what? If you punch me in the face, I will say thank you. I deserved it.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, dude, if both the Universal parks were like considered one park, it would without a doubt be the best park I've ever been to. I think just each of them on their own could use like 1 or 2 more things to really set them apart. I think with VelociCoaster, Islands of Adventure has that. And then I think Studios just needs like 1 more kick to be really, really set apart from the rest. Yeah,
I think so too. Well, honestly, with Diagon Alley and Gringotts and whatnot and Studios really has an amazing area on its hands.
It really does, yeah.
So that's a great plus. Outside of that, Men in Black is awesome. Bourne is incredible. Do Bourne if you can.
I haven't done it yet, man.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, Men in Black is so fun though. Men in Black, I feel like doesn't get enough love. I guess it's because it's been around forever, but
here's my opinion. If you do Bourne, if you do Diagon Alley, maybe Mummy, there's your entire ticket price for the day, and I would happily pay that.
Oh, for sure. And then especially if you haven't been to Studios, they also have some like really good like, you know, B to C tier attractions in like E.T. Transformers and Simpsons and E.T.'s great.
Yeah, I absolutely adore it
for sure.
So that was great to get on for sure. But yeah, no, Universal and staying on property is so easy. I feel like I'm doing an ad for Universal. I promise this is not sponsored. I'm not like on their media list or anything. Good. But it is just fantastic. Like
it really is.
I can tell you, I will definitely be staying at the Endless Summer Resort whenever I go, and just taking the bus over, and it just makes everything so easy. Like I can't believe it's so incredibly easy like that. Anyway, we've talked about Florida a lot. I went to Florida in summer. Let's talk about some summer tips we have for visiting.
This was supposed to be the main topic of the podcast, but Universal's just that good.
Well, it's hard to not talk about it. You know, my first experience, we got to hang out finally after so freaking long. We didn't even take a picture together either. Great. Which, we should have done that for the thumbnail. Maybe for the thumbnail, I'll like Photoshop us together.
We're in vlogs. There's shots of us. You know, videos are just multiple pictures strung together.
That is true.
So they're technically. We technically took like thousands of pictures together if you want to get technical about it. But okay, so one thing that I was thinking, or a question that I often have sometimes is visiting theme parks in the summer even worth it? And there's a million different factors from, you know, which park it is that you're going to, what times of the day you're going, but just overall, in your opinion, do you think visiting parks in the summer is worth it? Overall.
You know, it's kind of funny. I usually don't visit parks in the summer, even in Southern California. Usually summers are kind of my off season, if you will, because the parks always get really busy. It's always really hot. You know, there's a lot of negatives compared to, of course, winter, at least in Southern California, because Southern California winters, usually the parks are deserted. It's a nicer temperature. You can do whatever the heck you want in terms of rides all day. You don't have to wait 2 hours for your favorite attractions. So like that's a lot of pluses to at least winter before the pandemic. Now though, after not being able to go to these parks like nearly as often, I definitely want to go to a lot of parks this summer and brave that heat, brave the lines. Even if I just do a couple rides, like I feel like it'll be worth it for me. I can get a couple videos out. I can have just a good time on these rides that I've missed a lot, you know. And so I think that's how a lot of people are feeling. So expect a lot of people at the parks, a lot of crowds, a lot of wait times. So it is going to kind of stink a little bit if you're expecting to get on everything. And if you really want, you've always got like fast lane and express options you could purchase. But I think that's one thing that's my biggest tip for this summer. Expect not to ride everything.
Yeah, more than ever, really.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat you are. I'd say if I had to give a blanket yes or no, I think I would say no. Unless you're visiting a park that is like only open in the summertime, you know. So for travel, I'd say you can go on vacation to a park, but like home parks, absolutely not. I don't go to home parks in the summer. If I've been there more than 10 times, why bother going on a day that's just going to be, you know, more miserable in every aspect, for lack of a better word. You know, you have the high crowds. It's super hot. There's plenty of places that can't handle either of those things in the summertime. Yeah. For the heat and sun, Cedar Point is a great example. Mm-hmm. That park would be a lot more enjoyable in the spring or fall when it comes to just comfort.
Well, in terms of comfort, sun. I think pretty much every park, at least at least that I can think of, is better to visit in spring or fall, even in some
definitely
places.
Better.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of places that handle it just fine. Like Universal, there's so much air conditioning in that resort that you can get air conditioning walking on the outdoor midways if you're just walking near the gift shops.
Yeah.
Like you can walk by a gift shop and it can feel like it's like 70 degrees outside, even if it's like 95 with like 80% humidity. Like there's plenty of parks that handle the heat just fine. I think even parks like Knott's Berry Farm and Magic Mountain, even though they don't have like the best setup to deal with really high temperatures, there's at least shade in like half of the park. Especially with like Magic Mountain having lots of natural shade in some of its less well kept areas. At least one of the benefits is shade. Yeah. So there's certain parks that can handle it better than others, but you know, those two parks that I just mentioned, like Knott's Berry Farm and Magic Mountain, they can't handle crowds, man. They just don't have the throughput to handle large crowds. Whereas, again, to keep praising Universal, both those parks, once you're in the park, it doesn't really matter. You can do most of the things that you want to.
Even with Disney,
because they get people through. Disney's another great example.
Yeah. So, I mean, but even then, there are so many attractions at those parks that are like such mainstays, at least in popular culture. You're not going to be able to ride all of those either, probably. You know,
I mean, at least another pro to visiting parks in the summer is extended hours.
Yes.
Most of the general public isn't willing to go right at opening and stay all the way until close. Mm-hmm. So if you're willing to just take a couple hours out of your day to just relax, take a break when the queues are at peak wait times, and you know, just take advantage of that time to eat and relax, and then just take advantage of the mornings and nights to get, you know, a big chunk of your rides out of the way, then you can have a pretty fruitful day. Well, I guess that goes for any park.
With Florida especially, go in the morning. At noon, go back to your hotel, eat some lunch. It's cheaper. Take a nap. Then go back at night. That's your best bet. That's your best plan in terms of like trying to do everything at the park while also feeling okay. Because I know if you were to do the full park day, especially with those hot and humid days in summer, it might get really, really tiresome. You definitely drink as much water as you can, have a bunch of sunscreen. I'm still peeling from my one day at Volcano Bay. But like, I think that's your best bet with Florida. Now, in terms of California, obviously, most of you are not going to have a hotel next to the park unless you're at like Disneyland and you're staying at Grand Californian, which can get pretty pricey. So if you're there, maybe do that. But like with Knott's, with Six Flags, I would definitely look to, just sitting down at a restaurant that's shaded or going on one of the indoor attractions potentially, just taking a chill pill. Don't worry during the middle part of your day. But early morning, late at night, those are your best times in terms of like getting on as many rides as possible for sure still.
And like save that best attraction in the park for last thing of the night, because it doesn't matter how long you're waiting in line. If the park is closed, there's nothing else you can do. So that's always, that's what I tend to do. Yeah.
Well, it's like with Ghost Rider, especially at Knott's, we will always save that for the last thing because,
of course,
first of all, we prefer night rides on it. We think that's a better experience. But the big thing is we don't want to wait in 2-hour lines in the middle of our day. We'd rather leave that for the end so we can do everything else before.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, exactly. It takes up time in the middle of your day, and then oh no, you can't ride Silver Bullet, Montezuma, and Jaguar in that time frame. So.
You brought up Volcano Bay. Volcano Bay has water.
It does,
and water rides also have water. What do you think about water rides in the summertime? Because I think it is so hard. Like there is like 2 slivers of rideable time for water rides, and it's like late spring and early fall where the temperatures are high enough but the crowds are low enough. But any time in the summer, you don't do water rides. That's my opinion, man, because I'm not waiting 3 hours for any attraction, let alone a water ride that is like fun, but it's nowhere near the best ride in the park. And you gotta, like, it's water rides. You're either waiting 3 hours or getting cold.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I totally agree with it. I understand why people want to cool off. And I think that's honestly one of the best ways to do it. But if you have to wait 2 hours for it, it might as well just buy a water bottle and dump it all over your head. Like that's gonna be a better idea in terms of trying to get the most out of your day in terms of time than waiting the 2 hours for the water attraction. Don't get me wrong. They're great rides. Like they're fantastic rides, but in the dead heat of summer, everybody wants to ride them because they want to find a way to cool off. And heck, even some of the water attractions in Southern California, especially, you're not going to get that wet. Even on the drenchier days.
Don't be the sucker that gets in line at like 6 p.m. at like the hottest point during the day, and then you wait 3 hours, and by the time you get on, the sun is down and it's like 65 degrees, and then it's only getting colder in the night. Yeah. Don't be that idiot. Please. At least get in line. Get in line like 3 p.m. or sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could probably get away with like 11 a.m. You're probably going to want to do the other more popular rides in the park at that point. But at least at 11, everyone else is doing those other popular rides, so the wait won't be as terrible. Just don't be the idiot that does it. Like think about the timing before sunset. That's all I'll say, because you need like a good hour of sun to dry off. So don't ride just before sunset, please. Please don't be that person.
Maybe you try and do that first then for water rides, so then you're kind of cool throughout at least a couple hours.
It's not the worst way to go about it, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, but the problem is you'd probably dry off by the hottest point in the day, but at least you wouldn't have to wait in that line.
And then that's when you eat your lunch. Do your research, find a good air-conditioned place. Every park has at least one.
Yeah.
Spend time in there.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably the best bet. But yeah, water, sunscreen, must-haves. Sunglasses, another good thing to have too. Hats, 100%. I know it's a lot of loose articles, but most parks accommodate for that. And if not, you just pay the $1, $2 for the locker. Which does kind of stink when you're paying for a lot of lockers throughout the day. But most of those parks that have a bunch of lockers like that, they have a plan where if you pay like $8 to $10 for the whole day, you get lockers everywhere. So that's another option. Like there are plenty of ways to deal with the loose articles that you bring, especially for the summer heat, but you're going to need those articles for sure.
Price is another thing that makes visiting in the summer less desirable. Everything's more expensive, but I'd say ultimately for summer, visiting parks worth it. Smaller parks, home parks, parks that aren't great at handling capacity, no. So like for a majority of parks, no. For bigger parks, for vacation destinations, I'd say yes, because they can handle it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. But yeah, I like if you're going to do it smart. You know? So,
don't be dumb.
Yeah. So I think if you guys have any more questions about that, make sure to, let us know down below, unless you're doing the audio version, in which case, hello, thank you for listening. And make sure to go to the YouTube channel and comment down below. Speaking of which...
Oh, yeah. No, you butt.
Oh, okay.
Butt.
Okay.
Talk about your butt, Drew.
Thanks. It's pretty flat. Speaking of which, I wanted to let you guys know, if you're watching the YouTube version, we do have a specific Loopy Doods channel, which I will have linked in the description. We will have all of these podcasts on there shortly. And so if you want some more Loopy Doods, make sure to go subscribe over there. Mario, yes, your turn.
Oh, yeah. So, if you guys want, if you're not ready for this ride to end, go ahead and go over to my channel where we have our postcast, One More Ride. That's where we're taking your guys' submissions. We talk about them, and that's it. We take your submissions and talk about them. Yeah. Today we asked you guys what your tips are on summer visiting parks in the summer, and I saw them. There's some good stuff in there, so go ahead and check that out. Maybe your submissions are in there, and I cannot speak. So Drew, do you want to take us out?
Well, I speak just as good sometimes, so thank you all so much for watching and or listening. We really do appreciate it. If you guys are enjoying these podcasts, make sure to let us know. We're very interested in your guys' opinion on everything. Sorry we talked about Florida so much. It's just so prominent in my mind, and it was just such a big thing for me personally, and I'm sure Mario had at least an interesting time seeing my reactions to everything. But yeah, so thank you again so much. Thank you for getting me to 10,000 subscribers. Now we got to get Mario to 1,000, so make sure to go subscribe to him at Mostly Coasters. And of course, as always, we'll see you on One More Ride.